Hi, welcome to episode 216 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura, also known as Fluffy Kira on Ravelry. Fluffy K on Ravelry. Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea, where I sell my handspun yarns, and we have a Ravelry group called The Corner of Knit and Tea. If you haven't come over and checked us out, please do. So hi, how are you? It has been about a week and a half since my last recording. I have been to London and back and have some fun stories to share with you. And today I am dressed in just a t-shirt because it has gone from polar vortex to 60 degrees. So it has been an eventful week. How are you? So when we last spoke, it was Wednesday. I was getting ready to get on a plane on Thursday and head over to London, where Wes was working for a little while. I did. That all went smoothly. I arrived early Friday morning, and a lovely podcast viewer and an internet Ravelry knitter friend met up with me at the airport. She was absolutely lovely. She picked me up at the airport and helped me navigate the train system into London because I flew into Gatwick. And so I had to take the train into London, and that was absolutely lovely. We went by the hotel so I could drop off my suitcase, and then we went to a yarn shop. It was so much fun. We went to Loop London, and I bought enough to get a tote bag, which actually isn't that much. I think it's like 25 pounds. So it wasn't that much, but I got a tote bag and I shopped at Loop London, and while there I tried to buy yarns that were from London or British yarns. The first thing that I bought some Jamieson's Shetland Spindrift. I know you can get this in the States, but I got some to do a hat that reminded me of my time in London. I got 3 colorways. So this is Raspberry, the middle one is Sunset, and the green one is Laurel. And I think I'm going to do the Busta Beanie, which is a colorwork hat with a main color. I think this will be the main color, and then these two will be sort of the contrast colors. It's a little bit, it looks almost like geometric triangles. It just, I wanted something to make me remember my trip, and so these are them. And then I got one other skein of yarn. The interesting thing about Loop is it is a beautiful shop. It is tiny, but the walls have yarn floor to ceiling basically, and there's a little loft upstairs where there's more yarn, but it's a very kind of skinny, I don't want to say tenement building because that's not it, like the Victorian buildings, which were super skinny, and then they just have some height on the street, and quite a bit of Loop is actually for Londoners. So a lot of what's in Loop are also American yarns, like Mad Tosh, and why am I struggling to think of others? But there are quite a few American dyers who are at Loop. So I definitely didn't want to go to London to buy Madeline Tosh because I can buy that here. So I focused on British brands, although there were some other beautiful fibers. I saw Qing Fibers for the first time. That's Qing. They have beautiful, beautiful yarns. I'm trying to think what else I saw. You'll have to forgive me because that Friday, basically I had taken an overnight flight. I did not get a lot of sleep, and so I was not working on firing on all cylinders, as it were. We went, and as I said, I was looking for British yarns, and this is the Little Grey Sheep at Well Manor Farm, the British Hampshire 4-ply, and this is a small family farm, and this is Gotland fleece. It says, working with small family farms and incorporating our own Stein fine wool and Gotland fleeces, we have aimed to produce an outstanding lofty British yarn. Once it is blocked, it is silky to the touch with a slight bloom, washed and spun in Yorkshire and hand-dyed on the farm by Emma. And this is 220 meters, about 60 grams, and it is in the colorway Lost Soul. So I definitely had a theme going with kind of like pale greens and teals. And actually my thought is at 220 meters of what is probably a Sport to DK weight, I could probably get some fingerless mitts, and they would sort of, they'll be close to my hat. Not quite, but they'd be close enough. So those are my British purchases. at Loop, and we had a lovely time, and then we went across the way and had some lunch, and unfortunately by then it was about 1:30 and my body did not want to be awake anymore. And I started to feel kind of ill, so we had to go back, which means we skipped the tea portion of the afternoon. But I guess what I didn't say is I got in at a little after 8 in the morning, and my friend picked me up at the station at 9, so we did have several hours together, and it was really fun because, for instance, like as we were riding the train in from Gatwick, she was pointing out all the historical buildings and telling me all kinds of interesting things. And the one thing that I definitely remember from this trip that we talked about is she asked me if I'd ever had Marmite or Vegemite. I can't remember. They're basically the same thing. One is kind of Australian and one is, I think it's Vegemite. That's British. And she talked about how everyone either loves it or hates it, which is the impression that I've gotten. But the interesting thing she told me is that it's genetic. So it's a little bit like whether you like cilantro or think it tastes like soap. It's a genetic thing that you are predisposed to either like it or not like it. So I thought that was really interesting because you always hear people going, oh, Marmite or oh, Vegemite, and there are people who love it. But the deal is it has to do with your taste buds and your receptors. So that was very interesting. See, I can remember some of the facts. Anyway, so we had a lovely morning and bit of afternoon, and I was so sorry to not feel well, and it meant that we forgot to take pictures. So I took a picture of Loop, and it's in my I think I put it on Instagram, and it was a lovely, lovely day, and I am just sorry that I could not do more, so I'm just gonna have to go back so we can spend more time together. But it was so much fun. So Friday night, my husband had a work dinner, and I was just completely tired and out of it. So I basically dozed all night, and he came home at like 3 in the morning, and I was like, okay. But Saturday we got up, and I had booked passes for us to go to Stonehenge. So Stonehenge is a few hours outside of London. I guess I should back up. I was in London when I was 18, and so I did a lot of the big sites. Like, we went to Buckingham Palace, we saw the changing of the guard, we went to the Tower Bridge and saw the crown jewels, we saw Parliament and Big Ben. So I had done a lot of the big sightseeing things that there are to do in London, which is not to say things have not changed in the last 20 and mumble years. But yeah, it's been 22 years since I've been there. Which is not to say that things haven't changed, but like a lot of the historical buildings are very much the same. So I asked Wes what kinds of things he might like to do while we were in London, and he really didn't come up with very much. So then I started thinking, well, maybe we could do a day trip from London, and asked him if he'd be interested in anything. And when I suggested Stonehenge, his eyes lit up because he loves history and that era. And so, or not that era, but he loves historical. So I was able to, on TripAdvisor, I just went and looked, and they have a whole variety of bus trips that leave from Victoria Station, which is not terribly far from where we were staying. And they're just basically like the nice coaches with the cushy seats and whatnot. And for all of the trips, you can go various places. You can go to Bath, you could go to Windsor Castle, you can go to Cardiff. I mean, there are tons of places you can go. And I just booked. It was supposed to be, quote, a half-day trip, and it wasn't literally a full-day trip, but it was kind of a long day, to Stonehenge. So what we did is I booked the, I think I booked the 10:45 a.m. departure because we had to get to Victoria Station. And so we got up, we had some breakfast, we made our way to Victoria Station, and it was actually the coach station, which was a little further away, but that's fine. And then we got on a bus, and it was about a 2-hour trip to go out to Stonehenge. And I should say that our ticket included the bus passage and then also our entry fees at Stonehenge. So for like one price, I basically pre-reserved all of our stuff, and the bus took us out there. It gave us about an hour and a half to 2 hours to wander around out there, and then it took us back to London. And so we left about 10:45, 11 in the morning, and we got back, I think, about 5:30. So it was, I mean, it was a good long trip. It wasn't like technically a full day trip. We didn't get back at night or whatever. But so we went out there, and it was great because So I've never been to Stonehenge before. I understand before it was a lot less developed, and you could actually go and stand in the inner circle, and you can't do that anymore because there's been quite a bit of vandalism. So basically the tour bus took us out there, and then you could get on, it is maintained by the Heritage site. Heritage site? I can't remember. But if you look up Stonehenge, you'll be able to see, if you look up the Stonehenge site, you'll be able to see who it's maintained by. Basically, then we had the option to take another little tram that belonged to the site out to Stonehenge, or we could walk along the path. And it was about, I think it was probably about a mile. So we went ahead and walked out to the stones, and it was beautiful. I put some photos up in my Instagram, and also on my blog. It was windy and cold. Of course, London is cold in January. It was probably in the 30s and 40s that day, and windy. We had brought our coats and hats and mittens, so all of the photos you can see of us in London are us wearing our hats and scarves and whatnot. But it was beautiful. It was amazing. We got to wander around. The paths are set up so you can kind of wander around Stonehenge. And then it turned out a storm was rolling in, so all the photos that I took are super dramatic because you can see like all the gray clouds in the sky as it's rolling in. So we wandered around for a while, and then we headed back, and we hit the souvenir shop, which I'll be able to share something. I'll show you something that I got in just a bit. And then actually we were hungry because, like I said, we left at 10:45 and we got back at 5:30. So it was like mid-afternoon, and we were super hungry, and they have a little cafe out there, and I had a hot veggie pasty that was so amazing, and it might have just been because I was cold and hungry, but it was so amazing. And then I think Wes had like a sausage roll. Anyway, and then we got back on the bus, and we drove back into London. And we got back, and Wes, he's been working up to running, so he ran, and then we went out to, our hotel was right near Paddington Station. We were like between Paddington Station and Hyde Park, just a few blocks away. And we went to the Pride of Paddington, which was a pub across the street from Paddington Station, and we both had British dinner. I had kind of chicken and chips, and then Wes had, I don't even remember, oh, he had a steak and ale pie. So we had British food that night, and went to bed, and then the next day we got up, and the weather was no better. It was kind of rainy, misty, foggy, cold, super windy the entire time we were there. But we decided that we wanted to go out and take a walk. And like I said, we were staying kind of by just north of Hyde Park. So we wandered through Hyde Park, which was really nice. And then we sort of accidentally, we weren't really paying attention to it. We had a destination in mind. We wanted to go see the Globe Theatre. There is a replica of the Globe Theatre that was erected in London in the late 1990s, and they do Shakespeare and other classic plays, and they are open for tours. And I had actually tried to get us tickets to go see a show there. It turns out they don't perform in the open air theater in the winter. They have a smaller indoor theater that they perform in, so even if I had been able to get us tickets, we wouldn't have actually been in the Globe Theatre. But you can still take the tour of the open air theater, and while we did, it rained. It was kind of fun. But so that was our destination, and we basically wanted to walk through Hyde Park and along the Thames River to get to the Globe. And so we walked through Hyde Park, and we kind of cut off one side, and I didn't really kind of realize where we were, and then all of a sudden we were at Buckingham Palace, which was kind of funny because Wes was like, I don't know what this is, and I'm like, this is the palace, honey, and he's like, which one? And I was like, Buckingham. Because you could see like all the royal seals and the E2R and, you know, all the Beefeaters and whatever. Anyway, so we didn't see the changing of the guard, but we wandered through kind of the courtyard outside of Buckingham Palace, and then through St. James Park, which is the little park that is right around the outside of Buckingham. And the interesting thing is that as part of the Queen's Jubilee, which happened obviously since I was there, they've erected all kinds of walkways and paths, and I think it's like a 17-mile loop of some sort. And so we followed along that quite a ways. We ended up at the Royal Guard House, and they were doing some kind of demonstration complete with men in, everyone in very period dress, and women and men and spears and soldiers on horses, and I think they were dragging along a cannon behind them, and we sort of like lucked into this. We just kind of walked upon it, and the presentation was going on, and then they kind of did a parade right past where we were standing on the street waiting to cross. And then we kind of walked through the Royal Guardhouse Plaza and down towards the river, and then we ended up going over one of the bridges by the, I think we were by the Ministry of Defense, and we walked over one of the bridges and we could see the London Eye. We did not go in the London Eye. At that point, it actually started to rain, so we were kind of looking for shelter, and we were still several blocks away from the London Eye, and I don't love heights, and it was super windy, and so I was not real keen on the idea of going on that huge Ferris wheel in the wind. So we did not do that, but then we walked along the other side of the river, and that day we got food from street vendors. We got there was one area along the river walk that had like a whole variety of street food vendors, and there was a guy toasting up empanadas on an open flame, and so we got a couple of those, and those were delicious. And then we went and took a tour of the Globe Theater, which was really cool. If you were there, do it. They have an indoor, like a little museum thing that you can wander around for free. And then with the tour, they take you up into the theater and up into the balconies. And they talk a lot about how the theater was constructed. And most of it was constructed by hand. And they tried to basically create a replica of the old Globe Theater and what materials would have been used in those days. And it was absolutely beautiful. And I'm only sorry we couldn't see a play there like in the summer, although if we go back, that's definitely on our list to try. So by the time we got done in the Globe Theater, it was raining decently heavily, and it was pretty darn cold, and we sort of decided that we were done. We had originally been thinking we'd walk all the way over and then walk all the way back for some good exercise, which would have been like between 8 and 10 miles round trip. But we decided to take the train back, so we did that, and then that night we actually had dinner in our hotel. We did not pick our hotel because Wes went for work. They picked it, and we stayed in the Royal Lancaster, which was absolutely lovely. Like I said, it was just north of Hyde Park and just kind of southwest of Paddington Station. And it was absolutely beautiful, and they had a beautiful Thai restaurant in the hotel. And so I took Wes. We had sort of, so Wes had actually left for London on his birthday. So I took him to a really nice dinner in the hotel for his birthday. So then Monday he had to go to work, so I was on my own. So I decided that the first thing I was going to do was find a tea shop. So I Googled tea shops, and actually it's really funny. So I Googled one, and I came up with one in Covent Gardens, and I decided to go over there, and I navigated the tube all by myself and got over there and was super proud of myself, and I got to where the tea shop should be, and it was this weird looking office building. And so I went inside and said, "There's not a tea shop in here, is there?" And she said, "No, we're a registered address for a lot of online corporations." And I was like, oh, damn it. So I guess the tea shop that I had been looking for was online only, and that was their registered mailing address. So I pulled out my phone and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to Google and see what's here. And 2 blocks over, there was another tea shop, like a real tea shop. So I went to the Tea House in Covent Gardens, which was absolutely beautiful. Again, it was a kind of small Victorian tea shop. It had a really great display. I did put pictures of this on Instagram and in my stories. And it was floor-to-ceiling tea. And almost all of it loose leaf. They had some that was in tea bags in like decorative tins. And actually I sort of regret not getting one because I would have liked one of the decorative tins for later for notions or whatever. But I stuck to the wall with tea, and I got a couple bags for myself and a couple bags for my friends here in Kansas City. And we'll get to that in just a second with the tea. So then after that, I decided I was going to head over to, I wanted to do a museum or something because the weather still wasn't that nice, and I didn't want to spend a ton of time outside because it was still pretty windy and cold. And so I had been to the British Museum when I was there when I was 18. So I picked a different museum and I decided to go to the Victoria and Albert Museum. And the Victoria and Albert Museum is really fascinating to me because it has so many different kinds of things in it. And as it turned out, I lucked into, they were having a dresses inspired by nature. And so they had dresses from basically like the 1800s all the way through the 2000s. And it was this big circular display that was really cool. And then I went up and looked at Britain for a little while, kind of the British Art and Archives. They've got a little bit of everything there. And then I went up to the 4th floor, which is a lot of textiles, and I saw the ironworking exhibit, and actually I was looking for tapestries and things and didn't even find them. Because there's so much there. I'm just not even sure how many hours I would have to spend to go through there. And by that time it was like maybe 2:33, and I was hungry, and I had been walking a whole chunk of the day, and so I went down to their cafe downstairs and I got cake and tea, which was absolutely lovely. And they have like a little dining area, but then they have these halls off to the side where they have some sculptures in them and you can sit in there and eat. So I had orange cake with dark chocolate ganache and a cup of hot tea, and then I just sat and knit in there for a while. And it was really, really lovely. It was a beautiful afternoon, and I mean, the weather was not great outside, but it was a beautiful afternoon to be indoors enjoying a museum. And then about 4:30, I went ahead and headed back to the hotel. I cut through Hyde Park because I was feeling like I really knew what I was doing at that point, and it was awfully cold. I ended up stopping mid Hyde Park and getting a cup of hot tea. And then I ended up back at the hotel. Wes and I went out for, there was a little Italian place in the neighborhood we were staying in, so we went for Italian food that night. And then the next morning I got up super early because my flight left at 7 a.m. So I got up super early, navigated the train back to the airport, which was slightly easier on having some sleep, and then got home. So that is 21 minutes. I will put a note in the timestamp so that if you don't want to watch through my whole trip to London, you don't have to. It was a lovely trip. It was too short. I hope to go back. It seems like Wes is going to be working with a team. His company has an office there, and it seems like he's going to be working there some. So I'm hoping maybe we'll have a few more trips over the years. And I would love to go back and meet more people and meet up with my friend again and see more. So it was really a lovely short vacation. I came back in and dived into work and projects, and so let's start the real podcast at 22 minutes there. I apologize for the digression, but I hope you enjoyed a little bit of my vacation. So, of course, today's tea is from the Tea House in Covent Gardens. This is creme caramel, sweet caramel flavor with creamy vanilla notes on a base of fine china and Ceylon teas, a delicious dessert tea. Like I said, it's the Tea House in Covent Gardens. You can order from them online, or if you are there, you should definitely stop by. The other blend I got for myself was a London tea, which was a blend of Darjeeling and I can't remember. Oolong. Darjeeling and oolong, and I have been drinking it all week, and it is a lovely, great British black tea. So this is creme caramel, and this is the mug that I got in Stonehenge. It's Sheep and Stonehenge, and it says Stonehenge inside, so you can see just slightly. And I have been enjoying this mug since I got back. My mug collection overfloweth at this point, and so I'm trying not to buy too many more because I'm running out of places to put them. But this I could not resist. When I saw this was in one of the big window displays out at Stonehenge, and I was like, I have to have that. For those who have asked me about it, it is available through the heritage site for Stonehenge. There is also a teapot and a tea towel with the same print. That is delicious. So let's get to the knits. So I decided, I think I said this before I left, but I decided that February was going to be for finishing. And I put up a post on Instagram to that effect, and if anyone would like to join me, you are welcome to. I don't think it's going to be an official along in the group, but if you would like to join me, you are more than welcome to. I have 7, 8, 9 projects, and I hope to finish a chunk of them in February. A couple of them I can't show you because they are sample knits, and I'm not allowed to share them. So unfortunately, I'll just have to tell you about them, but I have plenty that I can show you that I have been working on. So the very first thing that I will show you is I finished my thrummed mitts, and I brought both so you can see there are two. One's inside, one's outside. I spent quite a bit of time on the last podcast talking about these. These are Briggs & Little yarns, and they were for a review for Briggs & Little. The pink is their Super Base, which is a plied bulky weight yarn, and it is in the magenta colorway, which is bright hot pink. And then I used the Country Roving, which is a loosely plied wool yarn that I said reminded me of Icelandic or Lopi. It is gray, and I used that for the thrums, and then you can see what the thrums look like on the inside. If you want more information about what thrums are, how to knit them, more about this project, you can watch the last episode of the podcast, episode 215. These are done. I am excited. They are pretty big for me. They would have come in useful because the one thing that I didn't tell you is when I came home, I flew home on Tuesday. I left on Tuesday and got in on Tuesday, the benefits of time changes, and we were getting ready to enter polar vortex weather. Chicago was so cold that they had tents with heaters outside. It was already in the negatives, I think, when I flew in, but on Wednesday it was something crazy like -27 in Chicago. That is Fahrenheit. And even here it was in the negatives before, and that's before wind chill. So I stayed in Wednesday and Thursday, but these would have been perfect to wear in that weather because it was so cold. And you can see I did the thrums slightly differently on the thumbs. Thumbs. So they're slightly different, but they are fine. They're going to be super warm, and I am excited to have them finished. There'll be a full blog post about them this week, and about the details on the project. But those are Briggs & Little, and they are done. Technically, I had this on the list for Finishuary, or finish it in February. Technically, I believe I finished these on the 31st, so they are done and did not move forward with me into the new month. I also am almost done with, if you looked at my photo on Instagram, I posted a whole bunch of different pictures of the 7, 8, 9 objects that I gathered to work on for the month. I am almost done with the project that was in the flamingo bag, which is a super secret project, the sample that I need to send off. I need to be mailing that on Tuesday or Wednesday, so I just have a few more rows to get that done tonight, and then that will be done, and that technically is the first project finished in February. So, then I'll talk to you about the projects, one that I took along with me and one that I started when I came home, but I meant to start it and I also counted it in my Finishuary. So, before I left, I showed you these gorgeous sock blanks from Zen Yarn Garden. We talked about them. They are the Luxe sock blanks. They are oversized, and I'm using them to knit a brioche shawl, which actually is also a sample. It will be a booth sample for them, but I asked, and she was like, please talk about it, show it. This probably saw almost the most work. Oh, I forgot a project. Oh, well. This saw probably the most work while I was gone. As you remember, when I started, this is just a, it's a pretty simple shawl. It is called Wrapped in Brioche. It is by Roxanne Yoon, who is the dyer and creative person behind Zen Yarn Garden. And as you remember, I had just the first little bit of the triangle started, and I am further into the triangle, and I don't know how much you can tell, but the greens have given way to the browns, so I am now in the browns, and pretty soon I'm going to be in the purples, and then on the opposite side, the greens and blacks have given way to far more green. So you can kind of see it. It's a little bit hard. It's probably easier almost far away to see kind of the color shifts. But I am working on that, and I made a lot of decent progress. This one is actually a pretty simple and rhythmic. It is the same 4-row repeat. I think it would be a great first brioche project if you're learning, because it just has some simple increases. Basically, I don't want to give away the whole well, the pattern is free, so you can download it on Ravelry. I don't want to give away the whole thing, but basically you're increasing at the outer edge and the center spine, the outer edges and the center spine every so often. And it's a 4-row repeat, so every 4 rows you're doing some increases, but otherwise you are just knitting and purling, and that is brioche knitting and brioche purling. But if you've knit brioche before, it's a really simple, and it was actually kind of rhythmic, and I didn't find it to be a problem at knitting it either while I was talking or while I was tired or whatnot. I had thought it might be, but so this one is the one that I worked on for the most part. The project that I forgot to bring you is my Boxy, which I guess it's over there, but I'm not going to grab it. My Boxy is the other project that I took with me to London, and I worked on that quite a bit as well. I think I'm up to about 8 or 9 inches, but it's all stockinette, so it's really not super exciting. I think I talked to you on the last podcast about how I adjusted the numbers on that to make it a little bit smaller, because it was coming out epically huge. So, I'm finishing up the first ball of yarn. I have 4, and I'm getting close to, I still have quite a bit left, but I'm getting closer to finishing up the first ball of yarn. So I just started adding the second ball of yarn in because, I may regret this, but I decided not to alternate skeins, mostly because it is a singles yarn, and it is knit at a very loose gauge, and my concern was that you would see the yarns kind of twisting and alternating, and that it would create a line, a very noticeable line down the point where I alternated skeins, and I didn't want to worry about that. And if we're being honest, I was a little lazy, and this dyer, I know she dyed them all. It was a custom order, so she dyed these 4 specifically for me, all in the same pot. So there may be variations in it. If there are, that's my own fault. But what I'm doing is, so that I don't have a full telltale line, what I'm doing is at the end of each skein, I will spend a little time just for a few rows alternating. So, I'm probably going to alternate for half a dozen to a dozen rows, and then I'll be done with the first skein and work into the second skein. And that way, if there are any variations, it'll sort of gradually fade in a little bit, and that's how I'm dealing with that. Anyway, so 8-9 inches on that. I need 16 for the body before I can break for the front and the back, or maybe slightly more than that. I have to double check, because like I said, I'm doing a thinner circumference, or a smaller circumference, but I am going to follow all the length for my size. So I need to work on that, but I don't know that one will come out this week, because as I said, I'm trying to finish a whole bunch of things this month, and I have a few things that are deadline knits, like this one, and this one just needs to be done by the end of the month, but I need to be working on them, so I'm kind of pulling things out in order of working on them. That said, I started another one that does not fit into the order, but I had promised a friend that we would do a knit along this month, and it is a bulky weight sweater, and it was so cold this week that I was like, I have to cast on for this right now because I need a bulky sweater. So a friend of mine, she and I don't generally follow trends, but she had been eyeing the Carbeth sweater for a while, Carbeth by Kate Davies. And she was like, I really, really want to knit this. Will you knit this with me? And I was like, sure, why not? So as it turns out, she wanted to knit the cardigan and I wanted to knit the pullover. So we each bought our versions of the pattern, and Carbeth is basically written to be knit at a bulky weight gauge. And I believe the original was knit with yarn DK weight doubled. And I believe my friend was trying to use DK weight and doubling it, and so far she has not got engaged, so I'm actually not sure if she's going to knit it or not, but that's neither here nor there. I decided that I wanted to order some yarn to knit it, and one of the sweaters that I have been wearing most this year is the Wolf River. I think I've worn it a couple times on the podcast, and I knit it out of a Craftsy yarn, out of their Cloudborne Bulky. That I got in a screaming deal about a year and a half ago. I think I paid less than $40 for the yarn and the sweater. And so I went back to Craftsy, which technically is now Blueprint, but you can still find it under Craftsy, to see if they had anything else that might be nice for a sweater, because the deal is that if you don't know what Carbeth is, it's kind of a cropped pullover, and so it doesn't require that much in terms of bulky weight. For my size, it only required about 700 yards. So I went looking for a bulky yarn just to see if it could be had, so that I could have another, you know, $50 or under sweater. And what I found was Cloudborne limited edition wool bulky in magenta heather. And I picked this colorway because for a cropped cardigan, I needed to, well, okay, I'm not knitting the cardigan, I'm knitting the pullover. And the cropped pullover probably works best with like dresses and maybe skirts. I don't know, we'll have to see what I have, but I have a whole bunch of LuLaRoe dresses that would be great with a cropped pullover, and I wear them a lot, but my thought was that I needed to get a color that would go with a lot of what I have, and since I tend to prefer jewel tones, I went with the magenta heather, which is kind of a burgundy, which complements all of the different colors. I have maybe half a dozen of those dresses, and I wanted something that would go with as many of them as possible. So I went with the magenta heather. Like I said, this is Cloudborne limited edition wool bulky. It is 100 grams, 109 yards. It is 100% wool. It is not super soft, but it is not super rough either, and I have surprisingly found the other sweater that I knit to be, and it was in a slightly different bulky yarn that was on closeout at the time. I don't, so Cloudborne is Craftsy's kind of house wool, and what I don't know is I don't know if they end up working with Millens. It seems like every time I go back, they have slightly different bases that are limited edition. So I don't know if they just spin up a limited edition base and then it's gone, and so they move on to the next one, or what. But so this is the Cloudborne, the limited edition in the magenta heather. So it's just like a nice burgundy jewel toned, and it's got just little bits of other colors running through it. A little bit of red. I think I see a little bit of like a green or blue in here. Anyway, it's really pretty. And I started. So far I have just done the ribbing around the bottom. So, and I am knitting, let's see. I did not do a gauge swatch because I'm living on the wild side. Because it's a big bulky sweater and it's supposed to be oversized anyway. I was supposed to pick a size with at least 4 inches of ease, so I am knitting the 43.5. I am a 38, so it will be kind of bulky, but I think it's going to be cute. And I did look at the, because I love the Wolf River so much, I have used that, I used that to measure how wide I think I want my boxy to be, and I also think that this one will be fine. This will have less ease than that, but it will have plenty of ease. So I have just started, but my plan is to knit a few rows of this in between other projects, because this is going to be a quick knit because it knits up in bulky. I want to say I did this, well, okay. Technically I was tired, so this took me a lot longer than it should have. I had to cast on 3 or 4 times before I did not run out of yarn. I cast on once on the wrong size needles. So it took me a lot longer than it should have, but when I finally casted on to the correct needles and actually knit what I needed to knit, it only took me about an hour to do the 6 rows of ribbing. So this will be a quick knit, and I hope to knock this out this month. It should be cold again. I guess I didn't say, so Wednesday it was like so far below 0 that they actually, all the schools were called off. They didn't deliver the mail. Like, they excused, which don't get me wrong, that is totally fine. I'm not upset about that at all. But you always hear the neither sleet nor rain nor snow shall deter the male person from his or her mail delivering rounds. And it was so cold that they canceled postal delivery. So it was really cold. And Thursday was not that much better. So I didn't leave the house till Friday. But yesterday was in the 50s, and today when I went out for a walk earlier, it was 62. So, like I said, I'm in a t-shirt today. It's great today. It's supposed to be in the 50s this week. I suspect it will still get cold again before we're done, and hopefully I'll have my sweater finished. I have so many projects going right now in the big project bags that I have that I am forced to leave this in a Ziploc plastic bag. That is why I need this month for Finishuary. So those are the two that I'm working on right now. I will pick up this week the next thing that is on deadline, which is that sweater for Miles that I started out of Kramer Perfection. And I will talk more about that next week because I'm going to have to do some thinking about it. And but it should work up quickly once I decide what I'm going to do. So I will bring that back and talk about that next week. But I think the brioche and that will be my focus projects for this week. I also have another... I'm supposed to be top secret testing some things, some needles. So I'm going to knit a pair of socks this week, and I can't share with you the needles, but I will share the socks with you. As I knit them, I'm going to do hand spun socks. So those are what I'll be working on this week. Let's talk about spinning. I was away from my wheel quite a bit in the last couple weeks, and I had almost finished spinning up some singles before I left for London. I finished those up when I got home from London, but then I got buried in all these knitting projects, a lot of which have deadlines, and so I've been knitting, so I have not done a ton of spinning. I did finish up the singles. This is Hello Yarn Songbird. This is on Corriedale. It does have some bluey parts as well, but these are kind of the reddish parts, red and orangish parts. My plan is if I finish up the deadline sample knit that I needed to finish by tonight, I'm going to ply this. So I just need to wind this off, and this will be socks for me. I did pick out another spin, although I don't know how soon I will get to it. I'm sorry for the plastic crinkling. I should have taken it out of the bag before. This was a braid that I bought on D-Stash because I just couldn't resist. It is from Bon Fiber, and it is superwash merino 5.6 ounces called Flower Power. You can see that is the card from Bon Fiber. And this is the braid. It is just bright, all kinds of colors, superwash merino. It would be excellent for socks, although it is an oversized braid, so there'll probably be plenty here. It might make a fun shawl or accessories, and this will be going up in the shop. So this is what I'm going to work on this week. Hopefully I will get it done towards next weekend, but if it takes me 2 weeks, I'm not going to sweat it because I have a lot of knitting to do right now. So that is the podcast, 42 minutes in. Thanks for hanging with me. I guess I have these longer episodes when I skip podcasts. I should not be going out of town again for a while, so we should be back to our regular schedule. In terms of knit-alongs, the Selfish Craft-Along ended on the 31st. I announced the prize today in the group. Thank you to everyone who participated. It was lovely to see you all. Like I said, I'm doing kind of an informal finish it in February. I probably won't start a thread for that if you want to join in. I think I'm tagging it Finish It February and Finishuary. So if you want to join in with that, you are more than welcome to. And then I don't have any alongs on the radar probably until the summer, at least in terms of things that I usually do. My plan is to, again, do a Tour de Fleece team in July, and also I really liked doing Christmas in July this past year. So if you think you might like to participate in that, basically I knit Christmas socks in July so that I would have them for Christmas. I'm not sure I have any more Christmas yarn, so I might have to try and find some between now and then, and that could be difficult, although I do know some shops do Christmas in July. Anyway, no, I do have something. I have a skein of sock yarn that is not specifically Christmas yarn, but I believe it's called Figgy Pudding, so I'll take it. Anyway, So those are the next alongs, but if there's something you, I would be open to hosting another along between now and then, because it's the end of January now and that's July. So if there is something you think would make a fun spring along, please let me know if you have ideas, because basically I just want something that can be done over a variety of crafts, so I can include as many people as possible. And then I am just looking for ideas. So basically, like I said, the only thing that I really want is I want it to be sort of maximally participative. So if it's patterns by a designer, I would rather not pick one pattern. I would rather pick a designer, so that everybody can pick their own. If it's a type of item like socks or shawls or something else, I would rather pick the item, not the pattern, so that everybody can knit and crochet or weave or do whatever they would like. So if you have ideas, please feel free to send them my way. You can leave them on this episode, or you can contact me either on a PM on Ravelry or on Instagram, because I would be happy to host and put up prizes, but I don't know, I just don't have any specific ideas. So yeah. So thank you for sticking with me. If this was your first time, I hope you enjoyed it. If you come back and see me often, thanks for sharing some more time with me, another 45 minutes. And I will shut up now. And so I will say, until I see you next week, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye.